Good evening, fellow flyweight enjoyers. Now, as a 125-pound man myself, I've always enjoyed a little bit of flyweight action, and today I just want to take a few minutes of your time just to explain how good this geezer on the screen is right now. Now, I reckon in a couple of months there's going to be many videos flooding your page with Joshua Van this, Joshua Van that, so I just want to make a little video just in case you wasn't paying attention, although a lot of hardcore fans are. Just want to run through some of Joshua Van's sort of perks, I guess I would say, some of his techniques, break down a little bit of his fight style, and really just kind of predict where he's going to go, because I think he's going straight to the top. Entertaining fighter with great boxing, good conditioning, gets finishes late in fights when he needs to. A lot of it is punches, great takedown defense, but yeah, let's get started. So here's a small list of sort of key points I want to talk about. The first one being slick boxing. Now, I get slick boxing is a little bit of a blanket term, but we're in the era of people like JDM now. Nathaniel Wood throws great punches. A lot of good punches are kind of starting to pop up in MMA. A lot of the time, good striking would be you keep range well, you've got good distance management, you've got a good low kick and a decent jab and a kind of okay overhand right. These days, you are seeing sort of true MMA boxing take shape, and guys like JDM, guys like Joshua Van, it's kind of a good, if you want to kind of watch tape on MMA on how to sort of improve your boxing and tune your boxing more to an MMA style, these guys are just, invaluable watching the footage on these guys. Joshua Van is an orthodox boxer, which, a lot of guys switch it these days. I have seen him switch a couple of times, but predominantly he is orthodox and he loves that jab with his left hand. He also loves the lead hook to the body, which is a favourite of many, including my favourite punch to throw on a bag, my favourite punch to try and land in sparring, my favourite punch to watch in any combat sport. The left hook to the liver is just, you can't beat that in my opinion. Joshua Van also has great cage craft. He knows exactly where to put his lead foot. He throws the correct strikes in the correct moments. If you try and exit out to his lead side, he'll throw the left hook. If you try and exit out the pocket to his right, he throws the wide right to the body, or the right overhand, or the right hook in general. And he's not afraid to sort of go to the body, which is my next point. A lot of guys are starting to throw punches to the body, which you'd think for a sport that was like almost 30 years old, or is 30 years old now, it would have happened a lot sooner. But we've only had a few fighters throughout history that have really took advantage of those kind of body shots, and Joshua Van, he loves a good lead hook to the body, man, exactly like JDM. I feel like their style is very similar. JDM's a little bit more switch hitty, a little bit more willing to throw high kicks and things like that, but in terms of the punching technique and the strike selection, I see a lot of similarities between those two. Takedown defense as well, and not only good takedown defense, technically, good sort of mindset around takedown defense. He doesn't let the threat of a takedown stifle his offense. It doesn't make him change his game plan. He's quite relentless. He'll kind of frame, sprawl, stand up and put it straight back on the opponent, which is what you need to do. So again, I hate to bring up JDM, but JDM's performance against Bilal, he gets taken down, he hits the knee lever, sweeps Bilal, stands back up and starts throwing heavy shots again. That is what you need to do to beat somebody like a Marab, like an Islam. Islam's a bit of a bad example, but a pure wrestler, a pure grappler that tries to weaponize pace. It's the moments when you are back on your feet that count, in my opinion. So yeah, very aggressive takedown defense style from Joshua Van. Will dig an underhook and throw his opponent off him, will sprawl hard and kind of try and land heavy ground and pound shots. I think it was Cody Durden that kind of tried to hold him against the cage with a single leg, and he started throwing those Travis Brown elbows. You just love to see it, man. You love to see somebody that doesn't just let the idea of getting taken down completely kill their offensive boxing and stuff. He's also a very active fighter. He is signed to fight Brandon Royval, and believe it or not, this is going to be his 9th UFC fight since 2023. They're Kevin Holland numbers. You do not see that often. Joshua Van got knocked out by Charles Johnson, was winning the fight, got caught with an uppercut, got finished, came straight back like very quickly, I want to say within weeks, and obviously he would have been sparring before that, so straight back in the gym, which is a little bit worrying, but he's put it straight back together. He's on a win streak again. So I guess hindsight's 2020 or whatever. And I think up until his Bruno Silva fight a couple of weeks ago, and I don't even know if this is correct. I don't know if he got a performance bonus in the Bruno Silva fight. Something's telling me he did, but if he didn't, he has not had a single performance bonus yet, to my knowledge, in the UFC. 8 fights in the UFC, a couple of finishes, all great entertaining fights, and he still hasn't had that 50k bonus, which is just ridiculous, to be honest. Why are you giving the performance bonuses to the main event because they had a half decent fight when there was great fights on the prelims? What incentive is there for these prelim fighters to get into a scrap if they're not sort of eligible for these bonuses a lot of the time? And Joshua Van just bought his mum a house with no bonuses, meaning that he bought his mum a house off straight activity, which you do not see often. A lot of guys want to fight 2-3 times max a year. I mean, 2023, and he's having 9 fights, and now he's rolling into a top contender fight, which if he wins, he's in the title picture. I mean, he's in the title picture if he loses. Even if he loses to Royval, he might be in the top 10, top 5 still. So yeah. And of course, he's 23 years old, plenty of time left in the game. The prime seems to be earlier in a lot of the lighter weight classes, which for Joshua Van, I think is a good thing, because if he's 23 now and he fights until he's 33, that's another 10 years. And with him creeping up on the title shot already, I think Joshua Van's game plan should be to kind of get in, make some money, get the belt and get out. You don't want to be taking damage. You don't want to be punch drunk by 28 years old, you know what I mean? So this is just sort of breaking down some specific techniques. He's got a great jab, good pop on the jab, uses the jab in a sort of multi-purpose way, will throw the light kind of flicky jabs to keep range when he needs, but he also knows when to kind of step down on that lead leg and really kind of really kind of put that jab in somebody's face and hurt them, bust up their nose, bust up their lips, hit the cheekbone, hit the forehead, hit the temples, hit the eyes, anything he can get. He exits on angles and lands the jab. The angles are a big part. I didn't write them here, but the angles are, I mean, if you go and watch his Bruno Silva fight, every time these guys get into an exchange, Joshua Van never exits on a straight line. He takes an angle, and then most of the time he'll try and fire the two off of that angle, and he'll land it as well a lot of the time, which is exactly what you want to see in my opinion. MMA footwork is very different to boxing footwork. You can look at MMA footwork and from a boxing standpoint call it poor, but just the simple fact of throwing punches in the pocket and then exiting out on an angle and firing another shot into the no man's land, so to speak. You can either walk an opponent straight onto a shot, you can exit the exchange in a positive light so the judges think, okay, that was a bit of an exchange, but Van landed the last good punch, so he kind of came out looking the best in that one, and you can win yourself a round off that. Also throws a double jab, which is amazing. Always love to see a double jab. Throws jabs to the body. I think I saw him throw like a 3-punch combination to the body once, which is just, you just don't see that in MMA, even at the highest level. We'll use that jab to set up a trap as well. I forget exactly who he fought, but just a classic sort of throw the jab, throw the jab, throw the jab, read the pattern of the opponent stepping straight back in a straight line, throw the jab, step forward, throw the right hand behind it and catch him. Just classic boxing, and Joshua Van makes it look gorgeous always. Good head movement, not too overzealous enough to slip into a head kick or anything like that, but just moves just out of range when he needs to, and again exits on angles. He moves his head on angles, he jabs and dips, he keeps his head off the centre line sort of as his exiting combinations. Good combination striker, but also a good single shot striker when he needs to be. Just I hate to sit here and glaze this man so much, but I really think we've got something special here at Flyweight. He's got decent low kicks. In the modern MMA landscape, you need a good low kick. I mean, a good low kick from both stances and some heavy hands, I mean, that can set you up to win a belt. Topuria doesn't even have a low kick from both stances. He has the orthodox low kick that he throws here and there. I think even to this day, Topuria has never thrown a kick above the waist in his UFC career. So the only kick he really lands is that outside calf kick, and he uses the hands to kind of follow up on those kicks, and just that's all you need. That's a recipe to cause damage. Some heavy hands, some good boxing technique, and a good low kick. Like, that's Alex Pereira right there. Obviously, Alex Pereira has a lot of tools in his tool bag, but you get my point. If you can use that outside calf kick to attack the lead leg, stifle the takedown, stifle the footwork a little bit, stifle the power coming back, and then you can then use your cage craft to get your opponent against the cage, like that is Topuria's whole game. Joshua Van can definitely take that and kind of adjust it and adapt it in a more flyweight kind of way of fighting. Now, just obviously I want to cover some negatives, some holes in his game. I'd say they're not really holes, but they're more ways his opponent can capitalize on his style. So the first one, the most obvious one in my opinion, is very heavy on that lead leg. Now, anybody in a boxing stance is going to be heavy on that lead leg. It's very difficult to not be heavy on that lead leg. It's very difficult to not plod a little bit when your aim is to kind of corral your opponent against the cage and throw some combinations. You are naturally going to be a bit of a stalker, a bit of a heavy on the lead leg type fighter, and that just opens him up to low kicks. But that's just the name of the game in MMA these days. I mean, even in his last fight against Bruno Silva, within the first 5 seconds, Bruno Silva throws an outside kick to his lead leg and sweeps him straight off the mat, and he falls down. He gets back up and he's fine, but a good low kicker, I mean, you're going to struggle against some of these flyweights. You're like a Moreno, these kind of guys that throw decent low kicks. I mean, you got to watch out for that if you're Joshua Van. If I was Joshua Van, I would be watching a lot of Jose Aldo tape. How does he deal with leg kicks? Try and implement that. Try and work on that in sparring. Easier said than done, but Jose Aldo usually, if you want to watch lead leg defense from like a boxing standpoint, there's nobody better than watching some Jose Aldo tape. Second one is risk of burnout. Obviously, I said he's 23 years old. Some fighters have way too many fights too young, and as I said, flyweight is a very young division. These guys are getting washed a lot earlier than some of the other divisions are, and being 23 is a gift and a curse for Joshua Van. I think he has had so many fights in another combat sport already, which has kind of sharpened his tools, I guess. But if you're coming into MMA with some amateur fights in one way or another, and you're then kind of fighting up the rankings and taking damage, and you've been KO'd by Charles Johnson, but now you've put it back together and now you're going to the top of the division. I mean, this guy could be champion by 24, 25 years old, and then where does he go from there? Do you know what I mean? Or does he fight for 5 years and defend the belt and try and become the flyweight GOAT? It's a great plan, but sometimes those plans end in disaster, and Joshua Van might be best to get in, make some money, get the belt, and get out, like I said. So we'll see. A lot of fighters have sort of fast rises and then they fall off just as quick. I think Cody Garbrandt was about 24 when he won the belt from Cruz, and we all saw what happened to Garbrandt. So I don't want that to be Joshua Van. I don't think it will be. He seems like a more complete fighter than Garbrandt, and not so much of a one-trick pony. But I mean, if anybody can do it from all the prospects in flyweight, my money's on Van. And the last thing is he's quite small for flyweight, which is a crazy thing to say, right? I think if the UFC had a men's strawweight division, Joshua Van would be perfect. But if you're not really a fan of weight cutting and you like guys fighting at the natural weight, Joshua Van has kind of been forced into doing that. But I guess there's something to be said about not having to go through a heavy weight cut. If there was a strawweight division, I'm sure he would take a crack at trying to make weight for that division, and that would cause some damage. So it's not entirely a bad thing that he's not fully draining himself and going in there and taking punches, but he is a little bit small, especially compared to some of the other guys. Like Moreno is very thick. Royval, the guy who he's fighting in a couple of weeks, is obviously very tall for the division. There's some tough fights for Joshua Van when it comes to size parity and just size in general. He's kind of built a little bit like Holloway. I know I'm not the first person to say that, but he is a little bit like a flyweight Max Holloway, with a kind of better technique on his punches with some of his shots, like his jab, his straight, his jab to the body. Like certain punches, he's a little bit more effective with Holloway, but he doesn't have the Holloway volume just yet. I mean, he has very high volume. He lands, I think he lands like 140 strikes. Like on his average strikes per round is very high, and he does kind of have that Holloway style, but Again, watch tape on Jose Aldo, watch tape on Max Holloway, craft your style. Flyweight is missing a guy like that, and Joshua Van is here to kind of take that podium, so I'm happy about that. Just the last slide to sum it up, I think he's a potential future champ. He's fighting Royval next, which means that if he wins, he's basically got a guaranteed title shot, especially if he wins in emphatic fashion or has a good showing. A lot of people are high behind Joshua Van right now, so he needs to take advantage of that. They're also, the UFC seem kind of desperate to get fighters in there with Pantoja. Pantoja is, in my opinion, one of the greatest flyweights ever. I think he's probably number 2 behind DJ, but he just doesn't get the love from the fans at all. They've tried a couple of fights now with Pantoja, and they're just not really catching on. Nobody's watching them. It's kind of the same issue DJ had, and I think Joshua Van could be the fix. To be honest, even with a loss to Royval, I still think it puts him in the picture. If anything, it's like the whole win or learn kind of thing. He's only going to grow from this fight with Royval, win or lose. And if he's not ready for a guy like Royval, then I hope he does lose. The last thing I'd want him to do is to get like a El Mali Piotr Jan robbery decision, get kind of thrusted up to the top and fight Pantoja and get absolutely smoked, and then everybody's saying, oh, Joshua Van wasn't that good, he got fraud checked, blah blah blah. I think he could be the first pay-per-view star since Moreno and Figgy, and Moreno and Figgy kind of became pay-per-view, I wouldn't say pay-per-view stars, but they sold some decent pay-per-views. They main evented a few cards, which for a flyweight title fight you didn't really see too much, but there isn't really a flyweight pay-per-view star. There's nobody that kind of sells any sort of pay-per-views in flyweight across the whole roster. I mean, flyweight needs a good star. Joshua Van seems like he has decent potential mic skills a little bit. He's from Southeast Asia, and I don't think there's anybody coming out of Southeast Asia that's kind of on this sort of title run like he is. I see comments on his highlight videos all the time from places like Myanmar. Apologies if I'm butchering that. I'm an uncultured British idiot. But yeah, man, it's all the stars are aligning for Joshua Van. And the last point is a good guy and good potential mic skills. He seems like he gets social media. He just bought his mum a house and kind of put out a video about it. Yeah, very respectful guy. Knows the game. Very young, 23. He's a zoomer basically. Like, he can take advantage of TikTok and all these things that O'Malley tries to take advantage of, but just kind of doesn't work. And then yeah, all aboard the Joshua hype train, baby. Can I get an amen? Yes, you can. I'm behind Joshua Van all the way. If you don't know now, you know. Go watch some Joshua Van fights. Go watch some Joshua Van highlights before his fight against Brandon Royval in a few weeks. And if he wins that fight, I mean, sky's the limit. But yeah, man, my name's Harry. I talk about fights. Bang, there's a picture of Max Holloway as a spoon.